Hello, my name is Cadet Preston, and I will be discussing the Battle of Antietam from the viewpoint of General Thomas Jonathan Jackson, also known as Stonewall Jackson. And I will now go into character. Hello, my name is Thomas Jonathan Jackson. They also call me Stonewall Jackson. In July of 1861, me and my troops, we rushed forward to close a gap in the line against some Union troops that were advancing on us from every side. And we had the task to ensure that they did not come any further. I am a skilled military tactician. I served under Confederate General Robert E. Lee in the American Civil War. This war was fought for 4 years. We played an integral part in this war. It was very imperative that we knew our job and we knew the role we played in order to be successful and win the battle. Even though in the end the Union claimed victory for the battle, we still know that we won the battle ultimately. I led troops at the first Battle of Bull Run. I led troops at the Battle of Antietam, and I led troops at the Battle of Fredericksburg. Consequently, at the last battle I ever fought at Chancellorsville, I was shot by a Confederate troop. I lost my arm a day later, and about a week later, I died from complications of the amputated arm. One of my last words were, "Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of the trees." I can imagine after all the fighting of the Battle of Antietam, because of what was going on, my mind just began to roll back to those things of the former days. I was born in Virginia in January 21st, 1824. My father and my sister died from a terrible fever when I was only 2 years old, so I was left with my mother. In 1842, I enrolled in the United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. In 1846, despite the lack of motivation that I received from my classmates, lack of motivation that I may have received from family, and all that was done to me during my time at West Point, I still graduated 17 out of 59 cadets. I graduated in the nick of time to fight in the Mexican-American War. I retired and returned to civilian life in 1851 after I was offered a professorship at the Virginia Military Institute in Lexington, Virginia. I went through some hard times there. Even my students talked about how my limbs weren't equal. So a lot of times I always pointed one limb so it wasn't obvious that my limbs weren't equal. So I eventually started to teach there more, and I became the professor of natural and experimental philosophy, as well as artillery tactics. However, in 1853, I married Eleanor Junkin, and the next year in October, she had a child, and she died of that child, giving birth to that child, which was a stillborn. In 1857 of July, I remarried to Mary Anna Morrison, who we had a daughter a couple of years later in April, but she died being only a month old. Later that year in November of 1857, I went back to the military life. In 1862, my wife had another daughter, and we named her Julia after my mother. History records the Battle of Antietam as the deadliest one-day battle in all American history. This battle only lasts one day, and it is recorded as the deadliest battle in military history. The Battle of Antietam, September the 17th, 1862. Just 8 hours and 15,000 casualties were affected during this battle. About 12 hours of intense and often close-range fighting with muskets and cannons had revisit on it calculated to be about 25,000 or less casualties, including an estimated of 3,600 dead. So a lot of people lost their life fighting for this. Well, they weren't fighting for this country, but they were fighting for the Confederate. Historians often say that the Battle of Antietam was considered a soulmate. However, the Union, as we stated previously, the Union does take credit for winning this particular battle. A couple of months later, Abraham Lincoln finally published the Emancipation Proclamation. However, there is a caveat. The Emancipation Proclamation only applies to those states that rebelled. So if the state of Maryland had slaves, but they were still a part of the Union, they were okay because they were still a part of the Union. The Emancipation Proclamation only abolished slavery from those states that were not a part of the Union. So it's very imperative that we understand my role in this battle and how I play an important role in this battle. I knew Robert E. Lee. I knew him personally. I knew what Robert E. Lee could do and could not do, and I was able to offer him some advice on a lot of different things when it came to battles. So I appreciate you taking out the time to hear me talk about the Battle of Antietam, just give a little synopsis about the Battle of Antietam and my role, Thomas Jonathan Jackson, also known as Stonewall Jackson, role as a general in this particular battle. I appreciate you and have a good one.